Hi, my dragons. So now we're on part two. We left off at informed consent, and I was telling you that you do have to fill out your consent form. There's a template that I will be posting for you guys, not this week, but as we talk about it more. And it has different guarantees for people, so you have to make sure that all you have to do is follow the template and then just put in your ideas for what was written in there, okay? But one of the things is debriefing, and you have to generally tell your subjects what you're looking for in your study. I mean, you don't have to give away the entire intent, but you do have to talk to them about it a little bit. So the other thing that we want to talk about with ethics is that you have to give them anonymity. Okay, so your subjects, they're going to fill out the consent form, and it has their name. After that, you separate the consent form from your questionnaires, whatever you're going to do, and you'll only know them as a number. So like cell 1, subject 1, cell 2, subject 2, or something like that. You'll have a coded number, and then you'll have a way to know, that cell 2 may be the male cell, or cell 1 is, the female cell, or whatever it is that you code it as. So anonymity means that you can't tell who that is that's answering the questionnaires. Okay, there's no way for you to identify them. That saves them. Like if you were doing a thing like how much do they know about their civil rights, and then you found, let's say you're doing faculty and students, and you find out that so-and-so faculty does not know their rights, you can't use that as a point of ridicule or something like that. Okay, so anonymity is that you will never be able to identify who said what. Confidentiality is that you know who it is, but you're not going to tell anyone. So when you go to your doctor's office, it's not anonymous. They give you confidentiality. Like they won't, and there's HIPAA laws and all of that stuff. They won't tell anyone else about you that you haven't designated, anything about your illness or about your tests or about anything else like that. So that would be confidentiality. They know who you are, but they're not telling. And anonymity is they just don't know who it is that answered that way. So your health department operates on anonymity. So if you've ever had a test for like a sexually transmitted disease or something like that, they will code it so that they just say, okay, this person came in for a test, your number is so-and-so, so-and-so, and we don't know who you are. You call in and we say, oh, this number was negative, okay? So they couldn't come, the health department can't tell, who it is. Just someone with that number came in, took a test, and it was positive or negative, okay? So that's that. Also, there are some studies that are blind or double blind. A blind study is when one party does not know that they're in a particular grouping. Okay, so let me give you an example. I have this friend. She's 80-something years old, and she's had a couple of heart attacks. Still going strong. And she signed up to be in this experimental study where they were going to use this new wonder drug that had been tested and had been cleared, but they wanted to see how it worked, in the population. So she did not know whether she was getting the actual drug, the heart drug that was supposed to be so good, or what we call a placebo, a fake drug, or nothing at all, just inert, chemical or water or something like that. So she had no idea, just that she was a subject in the study. That is a blind study. A double-blind study is when two of the actors in the research are blind. So that would be like the experimenter who gave the shot doesn't know, and the person receiving it doesn't know. So you have the people who are in charge of the experiment on one hand, then you have their assistants on the other who are giving the shot, and then you have the subject. So in that case, and she was in a double-blind study, the person giving the shot did not know whether they were giving the actual drug or the placebo. And of course, my friend didn't know either, okay? Turns out that she did get the actual drug, and her heart is in great shape. So it's a really cool study. It's a federal study, and she's doing great. 80-something years old. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's the difference between a blind study and a double-blind study. Of course, you don't have to do any kind of blind study. You'll probably forget, you're going to go in and you're going to have all these questionnaires, and you're going to have them divided up, and you'll probably forget, what was cell 2 people, and you don't remember, okay? So you have that sometimes, okay? There's also sometimes what we call shield laws, and those things shield the participant. So the participant is shielded from inspection, from publication, or maybe from their picture being taken or something like that, okay? So some of the studies that are really kind of interesting, like I don't know if you've ever seen studies where, I think Jimmy Kimmel does this a lot. He goes around and he asks people questions about, what do you think of this law? Not actually a law. And people are given their opinions, and but they're on video camera, okay? And then he shows it on TV and makes them look like, like nobody wants to be caught not knowing something. So it's really kind of a bad thing that he's doing there, but I'm sure that the legal department at whatever he's on, NBC, ABC, CBS, has taken care to get permission to use that video footage from all those subjects, okay? So that would be a shield law. So whenever you do research, you want to make sure that you're not hurting someone to begin with, and if you are using deception or something like that, that the benefit outweighs the risk, okay? So you have to do this risk-benefit sort of calculation, like, okay, I'm not going to tell them the intent of the study, but this could be really a fruitful study, and we could get a lot of information from it as well. So going back to use of deception in research, okay, not all the time will you be able to do questionnaires or something like that and have them answer truthfully and then get research from it, okay? So a lot of times subjects in the study are, they have evaluation apprehension, and what that means is they want to do the right thing, they want to look good, they don't want to make a mistake, they're trying to ingratiate themselves to you, the experimenter, because they want to contribute to science and they want to do well in the research. Sorry for all the moving, I'm trying to avoid a sunbeam. So evaluation apprehension, and they will, because they know they're being watched, because they know they're being monitored, they will emit behaviors that are really not genuine behaviors. They're like trying to look good, okay? So sometimes you have to use deception, and deception studies are the hallmark of social psychology. So when you think of like Milgram study, the Ash study, they don't really realize that, what the study's all about. There were some famous, all the social psychologists do use of deception study. I talked to you about the Great Peanut Butter Study. That was a use of deception because they didn't realize that all the peanut butter was the same. And we acted like there were differences. They didn't know that there were differences. Darley and Latney, they were two social psychologists at Ohio State University. They're the ones that did the studies, like they would go on the subways of New York, and they would fake having a heart attack, and just to count to see how many people stopped to help. So helping behavior studies are, hallmark of use of deception studies. Or there's this famous study called the Good Samaritan study, where they set people up to see if they would help just before or after hearing a lecture on the Good Samaritan, to see if any of it went home. I've had students at Tiffin University back in the day. They did this was a really good one, and it's use of deception. They were in downtown Toledo, and we had African American male, African American female, Caucasian male, Caucasian female pose as though they were in a wheelchair, and the wheelchair fell over. And they wanted to see who on a busy city street would help them, and would they help more or less, depending if it was a male or a female, if they were African American or Caucasian. And so the deception is they're not really wheelchair bound, and they're staging this thing ahead of time for the purpose of counting to see who would help. So that's a use of deception study. If you're going to do a use of deception study, of course the IRB will be all over that to make sure that you're not, harming someone, okay? But throughout all of the research, what you have to do is you have to be objective. You can't go in there with a bias or a prejudice. Sometimes it happens and you don't even know about it. So I do research on toxic tort, environmental studies and things like that, and see how jurors think about those kinds of cases. And I remember I was doing this research at University of Toledo, and in my office I had a big poster about the environment. And I was running subjects, and one of the subjects, I didn't realize that it was biasing in any way, the poster. I didn't even think about the poster. And one of the subjects said, "Oh, I'm like you, I'm an environmentalist. And I'm like, how do you know I'm an environmentalist? Oh, there's a big poster there. Okay, see? So that biased the study. So you want to make sure that you're objective and that people can't figure things out. You know, like, oh, she's an environmentalist, so I'm going to try and suck up and make sure that my answers look good to her. So you have to be objective. So objectivity is a really important part, and you want to avoid things like the Rosenthal effect. And that was a study where they went into a business to see, it was a factory. They wanted to see if people's production was going to be better or not as well, and they were going to watch them do how they perform at work. And it got better just because they were being watched. Okay. There was another famous study with kids on a school bus, and put a camera on the school bus to see, because the kids were so rowdy. So they put a camera on the school bus to see, you know, what the kids' behavior would be like if they knew they were being filmed. And when they knew they were being filmed, they became perfect angels. So what the school did to save money was they never recorded it. They just had the cameras up there. And people do that too. Like a lot of times people will put, this house is protected by this alarm system. And so, so maybe they do have an alarm system, but maybe they don't. And the offenders might not rob that house because they see the sign. Okay, so that's really kind of an interesting thing as well. So certain different types of setups that you have elicit certain behaviors, and we call those demand characteristics. The demand characteristics would be, you know, oh, there's a camera, I better behave nicely. So that situation is making a set of demands on the subject's behavior. Not that the subject would automatically behave that way, but the situation is what is in control, okay? So you also, when you do your research, might, instead of doing subject 1, subject 2, subject 3, you might use pseudonyms. I've had students who have, you know, the different cells that they're exploring, and they've given, you know, pseudonyms like, you know, based on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and here's the Doc cell, and here's the you know, Grumpy cell, and whatever, okay? So you can use pseudonyms and that kind of stuff as well. So there are a lot of pieces of research, which I'm going to go over in class, and I will put on Moodle, of really, really, really infamous, bad, unethical behavior. And some of them will be shocking to you, okay? And some of them will be, you know, like maybe ones you haven't seen before. Like you've all probably heard of Milgram in intro psych. That caused subjects a lot of stress and anxiety. The Stanford prison experiment with Phil Zimbardo. He didn't even realize what a toll it was taking on his subjects. So that got out of hand really badly. And some of the research that we've done that were very informative, like Milgram and like Zimbardo, would never make it past an IRB today. So you have that to look at as well. So that's why the IRB is really, really, really focused on, you know, the use of, they call them innocents. So protected classes of people, like people with developmental disabilities, mental health, prisoners, minors, those kinds of people. So they're really going to look very closely at those kinds of subjects to make sure you have protections in there. So we're going to talk about some of those. I'll post a lot of different unethical studies. Some of them I'm going to show you in class on Tuesday, and you'll see some of them are pretty shocking. And you're going to have to discuss that, okay? So there will be a forum that will go up for Friday, and you will have to answer that for attendance purposes. And then Tuesday, we'll be back in class. I really look forward to seeing you guys. So I'm going to close this here, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Remember, it's a great day to be a dragon. See you Tuesday, everybody.